Stop what you are doing. Right now, in countries you barely think about, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, quiet war is being fought. It is a war not of bombs or missiles, but of ledgers and currency. And if they win, you will pay the price. The history books are very clear. Every great superpower has followed a 7-stage pattern of decline. The US has already hit stage 5. What is happening with BRICS right now is stage 6, and it's the last warning before the fatal collapse. The financial system you use every day, the one that makes your dollar the world's most powerful currency, is called the exorbitant privilege. It's a magic trick that lets the US live beyond its means, print money without immediate hyperinflation, and punish its enemies with the stroke of a pen. But that magic trick is failing. We are going to look at the first 5 fatal stages of imperial decline, see how the US already passed them, and then drill down into why this BRICS alliance is the definitive, historically accurate stage 6, the last step before everything changes. The biggest challenge facing the American economy today is not inflation, not debt, and not even political fighting. It's the simple fact that the rest of the world is sick of the dollar. Think about what the dollar really does. When Saudi Arabia sells oil, it demands dollars. When Germany buys parts from Japan, they often use dollars. This massive global demand for US currency means 2 things for America. First, it keeps interest rates low because there's always a buyer for US debt. And second, it absorbs all the extra money the US government prints, preventing that money from rushing back home and causing massive, terrifying hyperinflation. This whole system, the bedrock of US global power, is what BRICS is trying to kill. And they are winning. To understand why this is so dangerous, you have to look back at the pattern. This isn't just theory. This is the story of the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, and the Soviet Union, all in the last 500 years. They all failed in the same way. Let's lay out the 5 stages the US has already completed, just so you can see how far gone we are before we even get to BRICS and stage 6. This is the first sign. A superpower starts believing its own press clippings. It thinks it needs to be everywhere, controlling everything, all the time. For the Spanish Empire in the 1600s, this meant fighting constant, long, expensive wars across Europe, protecting vast, resource-heavy colonies they couldn't possibly manage, and spending every last gold piece to fund armies in Flanders or Italy. For the British Empire, it meant maintaining an enormous navy and a global network of military bases just to protect trade routes, from Gibraltar to Singapore. That cost was crushing. For the US today, it means hundreds of military bases in dozens of countries, constant foreign interventions, and a defense budget that is bigger than the next 10 countries combined. It's a massive, endless, non-stop drain. The sheer financial weight of maintaining a global empire is the first weight that breaks the camel's back. It's a spending spree that never ends, and it sets up the next stage perfectly. When an empire spends more than it takes in, which is always because of stage 1, it has 2 choices: tax its people until they revolt, or cheat. Historically, empires cheat by making their money weaker. For Spain, this was simple. They would clip their silver coins, taking a little bit of the precious metal off the edge. Or even worse, they'd mix cheaper copper into the silver to make more coins. Everyone knew the money was worth less, but they had no choice but to use it. This destroys trust. For the US, debasement is done electronically. They don't mix copper into paper. They just print it. Trillions of dollars created out of thin air to fund wars, bailouts, stimulus checks, and everything else. This is the fatal part of this stage. When you print endless money, you are directly stealing purchasing power from everyone who holds that currency. You are actively making your own money weaker. This leads straight to the next problem. Once the currency is being debased, and the spending continues, the debt becomes completely unmanageable. The empire is borrowing simply to pay the interest on old borrowing. This is the definition of a debt spiral. The British Empire, by the 1940s, was so indebted to the US and others that they couldn't afford to keep their empire running. They were literally broke, and their former colonies smelled the weakness. Look at the US now. The national debt is a number so big it's hard to even say. Over $34 trillion. And here's the most terrifying part. The interest payments alone are rapidly becoming the single largest line item in the entire budget. We are spending more money just to pay the interest on the debt than we spend on national defense or on many social programs combined. This massive interest payment is money that doesn't build roads, doesn't fund schools, and doesn't do anything productive. It is dead money, flowing out of the economy, And it is a perfectly textbook sign of stage 3. This debt monster is always hungry. This stage is all about laziness and short-sightedness. Why make things when you can just buy them cheaper from somewhere else? The empire stops building factories and starts building shopping malls. It stops having a strong manufacturing base and starts relying on imports for everything: clothes, electronics, cars, and even critical medicines. The wealth of the empire starts flowing out. In the 1600s, the Spanish didn't use the gold from the Americas to build industries. They used it to buy finished goods from the Netherlands and Italy. The gold went out, and the wealth stayed out. The core Spanish economy became hollow. The Soviet Union fell into this trap because its planned economy just couldn't produce goods people actually wanted, forcing them to rely on outside imports or just go without. Today, the US has seen its manufacturing base decline for decades. When the pandemic hit, everyone realized we couldn't even produce basic medical supplies without relying on factories thousands of miles away. We ship raw materials out and pay huge markup costs to buy the finished products back. This is wealth leakage on a massive scale. It means the core economy is hollowed out, which always leads to stage 5. The people feel the squeeze. They see the debt rising, their jobs disappearing overseas, and the value of their savings getting eaten by debasement. Trust breaks down. They lose faith in the system because the system is failing them. This is where the political fighting becomes bitter, pointless, and paralyzing. The leaders can't agree on anything because they are fighting over a pie that is rapidly shrinking. Crime, drug use, and homelessness become endemic because the economic foundation of the society has crumbled. The productive, smart, and ambitious people start leaving for places that look more stable. This is capital flight and brain drain. This stage is defined by paralysis. The problems are obvious, but the political system is too broken to fix them. The British in the 1970s experienced the winter of discontent, constant strikes, and endless political turmoil as their empire dissolved. The USSR just stopped working. Look around today. The sheer level of distrust in every institution, the constant gridlock in government, and the visible social problems on every major street corner is the perfect, chilling portrait of a stage 5 empire. So, that's where we are. We've hit all 5 points. The military is overstretched. The money is debased. The debt is out of control. The factories are gone, and the country is paralyzed by infighting. This is the point where the rest of the world sees all those previous 5 stages happening and finally says, we are no longer taking this risk. They look at the massive US debt, the constant money printing, and the weaponization of the dollar when the US government uses financial sanctions to cut off entire countries from the global banking system, and they make a cold calculated business decision to quit the dollar. This is exactly what the BRICS nations are trying to do right now. BRICS started as a loose club of countries with big economies. Now, they are something far more dangerous to the US. In a single recent meeting, BRICS added several new, huge, oil-producing nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. This is not a coincidence. This is a direct attack on the petrodollar system. What is the petrodollar? Since the 1970s, the US had an agreement with Saudi Arabia that said, you sell all your oil in US dollars, and we will guarantee your security. This deal was a genius move. It forced every country on Earth that needed oil, which is every country, to first acquire US dollars before they could buy energy. This created a permanent, artificial, and massive global demand for the dollar. It was the dollar's life support machine. Imagine for a second that oil trades stop using the dollar. The sheer number of dollars that central banks around the world need to hold suddenly drops. When billions of dollars that were safely held overseas come rushing back home, they become like a flood. They chase the same limited supply of goods and services inside the US. This doesn't cause normal inflation. This causes hyperinflation, the truly terrifying kind, where the price of a loaf of bread changes twice in a single day. The US government loses its ability to finance its debt because the biggest buyers' foreign governments are gone. Interest rates explode. The debt spiral accelerates into a death dive.